Good evening, I am Ellen Mills, and this evening I will be doing part of the moderating, and my co-moderator, Leslie Wallstrom, will be doing also part of it. So on behalf of the League of Women Voters, there's something definitely missing here. Okay, much better. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Los Alamos, I would like to welcome you to this forum. I am Ellen Mills. I do sit on the board of the League of Women Voters, and Leslie is our vice president. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. Our mission is to enable voters to make educated decisions on Election Day. We welcome new members, both men and women. Membership forms are available on the table, and you can learn more about us by visiting our website at lwvlosalamos.org. If you still need to register to vote or change your registration, the county clerk, Naomi Maestas, is in the back of the room this evening, and she also has information about when and where you can vote. I would like to thank the businesses and organizations that are supporting our efforts this election season. The American Association of University Women, CB Fox, the Dell Foundation, Los Alamos National Bank, the New Mexico Consortium, Stan and Joan Premack, and the TRK Management. Please silence your cell phones now. Please do not record any part of this forum. PAC-8 is here this evening and will be videoing for us and be putting the video on YouTube. If you attended last week's forum, that is already available on the link on our League of Women Voters website, and this evening will be posted as well as soon as it's available. We are pleased to welcome 3 volunteer assistants from the Hilltalkers, the high school speech and debate team. They are Neha Sandev, I'm not going to say it correctly, too many syllables. Sonia Williams and Esther Warmer are helping us out this evening. For each group of candidates, we will follow the ballot order. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for an introductory statement. After they have spoken, we will have time for questions and answers from the audience. Then the candidates will be given another minute for the closing statement. Please hold your applause for each group until after their closing statements. Please show your respect for this process and for the candidates by behaving courteously. First off, we're going to hear from Ken Mildler, who is our county assessor, who is running unopposed. Then we'll meet with the candidates for the sheriff, magistrate judge, municipal judge, and New Mexico House District 43 in that order. Mr. Mildler.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank the League for sponsoring and hosting this forum. As was mentioned, I have no opponent. That doesn't mean you can't vote for me if you like what I'm doing. Just pass that on. As a reminder, most people, or many people, don't know what the assessor's office does. And so I want to start out by saying the assessor does not impose taxes. The assessor does not even collect the taxes. There are taxing entities in Los Alamos. That's the, thank you. In Los Alamos, that's the county council, the schools, UNMLA, and of course the state of New Mexico impose the taxes. The tax collector is the county manager. He's the treasurer for the county according to the charter. So running for assessor is similar to a judge. In other words, you can't make many promises. The only thing you can do is say you will follow the law and treat people fairly. And the law, as far as property owners are concerned, is that property owners be treated fairly, the valuations be done fairly, equitably, and correctly. Valuations for tax purposes are the values as of January 1st of every year. So I do want to say that last election I did make some promises. One was outreach to try to get people to know more about what the assessor's office does. And I've tried to do that outreach with service groups in radio interviews and newspaper interviews. The other is more transparency. We are going to be instituting a new website that will actually be able to give you your valuations in real time. So I'm almost running out of time here. So, you know, one thing I'm really proud of is that every year that our office has had a very good, actually pristine evaluation. We're evaluated every year by the Property Tax Division, and you know, that has really little to do with me. It has to do with my staff. And I tell people my main job is to stay out of their way, because our office is considered a model throughout the state in how the assessor's office is run. And we have a tremendous number of kudos from other state assessors and the Tax and Revenue Department. And again, that has nothing to do with me. It has to do with my staff. I have a staff of 6. They're very professional and knowledgeable. So I'll stick around afterwards for questions. Thank you very much.
So we'd like to invite the sheriff's candidates to come forward now. So first off, we have Joseph Granville sitting on this end of the table, Chris Lucchini, James Whitehead, and Greg White. And that will be the order that we start our opening remarks this morning. So, Mr. Granville.
Thank you to the League. It's nice to see so many people here.
Would you like to come up here?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So you might want to give us a little extra time.
Thanks. Thought I was going to get away with hiding over there but
Louder.
how's that? Mic test? Check, check. Good evening. Thank you to the League for holding this forum. It really is encouraging to see so many people out tonight taking an interest in all of the candidates that are out here tonight. I decided to run for sheriff because, like many people I've talked to, we've been experiencing a bit of litigation fatigue. And I think that it's time to start working a little bit more constructively to problem solve. I've been a small business owner, a member of 2 local nonprofit boards, and I understand that the only way to grow and cultivate long-term partnerships is by being willing to do the hard work of relationship building. As a candidate for sheriff, I'm not comfortable having an elected sheriff heading our police department. I'm not convinced that having an elected sheriff heading our police department will inspire the same sense of safety and consistency of services that we expect and count on from our fire department, our emergency medical services, and our police department. And as sheriff, I will focus on clearly defining the duties of the office of sheriff. To that end, I'm dedicated to working with the Los Alamos Police Department, our county council, our citizen stakeholders, to build a sheriff's office that is responsive to community concerns, is fiscally responsible, and whose duties are clearly defined. Thank you.
Let me make sure everybody can actually hear me. I can project if I need to. Everybody hear me in the back? Okay. I'm Chris Lucchini. I'm running for sheriff. Thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this. This is more people than I've seen in any of the previous. Okay, sorry. I've lived most of my life in New Mexico, returning from grad school by asked at JPL to work here at the lab. I left for a .com right before everything bombed, which was just bad timing. I now run several small businesses based out of Los Alamos. I'm running for sheriff because I believe that an elected sheriff with real law enforcement powers is an absolute necessity for this community. Without an elected representative law enforcement in this community, we would only have 2 of the 3 branches of government represented by somebody who's actually elected and responsive to the people. I'm the only candidate with the temperament, skills, and vision to ensure that the sheriff's office endures as an effective institution. Your sheriff needs to be clear-eyed and rational about his duties, powers, and mission and what those missions aren't, those powers aren't. I believe that your sheriff needs to believe in the office of sheriff. Does that mean I'm yearning to put on a gun, a badge, and a uniform and go out and give speeding tickets? Never going to happen. None of the candidates here, me included, have law enforcement background or law enforcement certification. We will be what's called an administrative sheriff. That means you have to go down to the academy for a 40-hour course that teaches paperwork and procedure and not SWAT tactics. This class does not replace the 800 hours of training that the academy offers to sworn law enforcement, and no administrative sheriff should pretend otherwise. The duties of sheriff are defined by state statute. This is law, not an a la carte menu with off-menu options. Sheriffs and deputies should be sensitive and knowledgeable about where to refer people that are in need of social services. As sheriff, I will not be using the office to feed the homeless, house the homeless, feed the hungry, or comfort the despondent. I will connect those in need with the appropriate professional, trained, and certified organizations whose mission it is to provide those services. As a private person, I volunteer my time and money for various good causes, but I don't intend to bring those into the office of sheriff. The initial decision of Lucero versus Los Alamos left the status quo ante in place. The LA Sheriff's duties are to maintain the sex offender registry and the service of civil process. This decision has been appealed, but every sheriff's candidate here should pledge to abide by whatever various courts' current ruling is, be it the appellate court or the New Mexico Supreme Court. The 2016 referendum to eliminate the office of sheriffs failed by 48% to 52%. That means this office is fragile. Given that, a sheriff that lacks the correct temperament or character for the office will lead to the destruction of the office. A sheriff that doesn't believe in the office will lead to the destruction of the office. I believe that I alone have the temperament, character, and vision to maintain the office as a valuable portion of this community. Dang it.
Hello, I am James Whitehead, and I'm running for the office of Los Alamos County Sheriff. Feel free to check out my website, whiteheadforsheriff.com, all one word. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters, as well as all of you that have taken the time out of your evening to spend with the rest of us candidates and learn a little more about the platforms that are being presented to you. I came to New Mexico 8 years ago and to accept a position as a fire protection engineer with the Los Alamos National Laboratory at TA 55. I'm originally from southeastern Kansas and northeastern Oklahoma, the area north of Tulsa. At the age of 15, I left an abusive home to join my brother in Stillwater, Oklahoma. At the age of 17, I joined the United States Army, spent 7 years in the infantry. In 2003, after a 14-month tour in Camp Hovey, South Korea, I returned home. I was honorably discharged and was accepted into Oklahoma State University, where I completed a degree in fire protection engineering and safety technology. Having served as both a soldier and a leader, I believe that I am the only candidate that has the skills necessary, skills and leadership necessary to be the next sheriff of Los Alamos. Having grown up working on small farms and ranches in southeastern Kansas, northeastern Oklahoma, I am no stranger to hard work. I find few things as satisfying as helping other people and a job well done. My education and experience as a deputy fire marshal for the city of Raleigh, North Carolina, and as a fire protection specialist for a nuclear power plant in Burlington, Kansas, have provided me the skills necessary to obtain my employment with the Los Alamos National Laboratory, as well as the education, code experience, and working with the laws and the statutes of a state, even though, of a state. I need to explain why I'm running. I'm running for the office simply because I believe in the rule of law. I believe that compassion is the consistent enforcement of the law. I believe that every person has the God-given right to the equal protection under the law. I believe that the statutes of the state supersede the charter and the ordinances of this county. I believe that Judge Felter got it wrong in 1976. I believe that Judge Matthew got it wrong in this past July. I believe that the attacks on the current sheriff are not only personal and unlawful, but also unethical and a clear violation of the public trust. I believe that the county government is lying to us about violent crime, lying to us about domestic violence, even about drug and alcohol abuse within our community. My name is James Whitehead, and I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
Good evening, folks. My name is Greg White. Nothing against Mr. Whitehead, I just don't like standing behind podiums or having other things between me and the people. I'm running for Los Alamos County Sheriff for one simple reason. I care about the people here. I care about them very much. On my website, real simple, my first name Greg, G-R-E-G, number 4, sheriff.com. I go into detail, but concisely, about exactly what I will and will not do as sheriff and why. I go into my experience in detail, but concisely also. The thing that separates me from my opponents, my comrades, hate that word opponent. I think as sheriff's candidates or judges, we're above that kind of stuff. Being retired, I'm the only candidate that actually has the ability, like our current sheriff is doing, to put full-time effort into an office that only pays part-time. On top of that, I am the only candidate that has any kind of experience whatsoever in the legal field and as a law enforcement officer. Now, the decision that Judge Matthews made, I think, is the correct one. And it's on my website for anybody that wants to read it themselves. We have an excellent and highly trained police department. Other than the statutory duties that Judge Matthews ordered for the sheriff's office, I see no reason why the sheriff should worry about the duties that our police department is currently doing. There are some things that are assigned to the sheriff, like the sex offender registry. I believe there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. That's on my website. I also believe things like working with our teens that are caught up in the court system, working with our schools to prevent the terrible problem we have with teen and preteen suicide, are part of the sheriff's duty as an elected official of the people, and that's one of the reasons that I'm running for sheriff. Is as a citizen, I have very little to no access to any of the powers that be. As sheriff, I really feel some of these people, school superintendents and other leaders in town, would be obligated to at least listen to my ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now we will take questions from the floor. You will have 1 minute to pose your question, and only one question. If you have a second question, you can raise your hand and see if you can get called on again, depending on timing. The question will be addressed to all of the candidates in the group. Please make sure no statements or comments. We're here for candidates' opinions. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer each question. The candidate should address the audience, not each other, and refrain from personal attacks. Our timekeepers will hold up warning flags so you'll know how much time is remaining. If you are in the middle of a sentence when the bell rings, it's not a bell, it's a You may finish your sentence, but do not start another. So let's go ahead and take questions from the audience. Sir.
Well, thanks to all candidates for coming here and introducing yourselves. So my question is...
We have a microphone.
Great, thanks to all candidates for coming here and introducing yourselves to us. My question is, what is your strategy to strengthen the sheriff's office? And what I mean by that, for most things in life, it comes down to dollars, right? So what is your strategy to secure more funding for the sheriff's office?
We'll start with Mr. Granville.
So the council has established a budget that we'll be working with, but I think what's important to me is clearly defining the duties. I think that's where we've run into a problem after the Vaughn case in '76, that it's still ambiguous, and I think that there's plenty of room and plenty of opinions in the community to find out what is important to people and how we can distinguish that office from law enforcement and serve the people.
Mr. Lucci.
I agree that our first and foremost duty is to define what those duties are for the Sheriff's Department. And none of us get to decide that. That's going to be decided in the courts. So once the courts decide, we can negotiate, whoever the sheriff is, can negotiate with the county council to add additional duties if that's what the council and the people of this county want to happen. The court is going to set a minimum bar for the duties and responsibilities of the sheriff, not a maximum one. In terms of funding, I don't believe we're under-policed. If anything, it would be a lateral transfer of duties and funding from the police department to the sheriff's department. I, for my part, will not accept a salary. I'll be donating it to some worthy cause until we have real duties for the sheriff's department.
Mr. Whitehead.
How I intend to continue to strengthen the office of sheriff is to continue to talk about the unpleasant conversations that the county council and the county government refuse to have with the people of Los Alamos, to include the lack of accurate crime reporting statistics at both the state and the county level. I think that we are actually under-policed. When 98 people are victims of violent crime in 2016, in 2017, when 56 people became victims of violent crime, but only 25 were reported, only 17 were reported in 2016, and already for the first 4 months of 2018, 4 persons have been raped in this county. I do not believe that that is an adequate level of policing. I'm not saying that the police department can effectively eliminate all violent crime that occurs in this county, but I do not think that anybody can look at the victims of violent crime and tell them with a straight face that we did everything we could do. Thank you.
And Mr. White, and really need to project or get close to that mic, please.
Let me just stand up so that people in the back can see who's talking to them. I am very confident that come January, we're going to have 4 new councilors on the council, which will mean that they have the votes to make some significant changes to the way that things have been going. I do agree that probably one of the best things that we could do as a community is to not define the sheriff's office by resolution, as the current county council does, without needing to take or pay attention to any input from the citizens. I think that the new council should work hard with the new sheriff to come up with what should be the duties and the responsibilities of the sheriff's department. And then I think they should work with the community to solidify those duties and responsibilities into the charter, so once and for all, there's no more question in the future about exactly what the duties are. Once those duties are established, I feel confident that the county council and the sheriff and the police department can come up with appropriate budget solutions. Thank you.
We'll take our next question. Yes, in the back. Wait, if you could wait for the mic, please.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming. I'm just wondering if you think that the sheriff's office should have a role in maybe taking a look at and maybe investigating some of the ethical lapses that have been going on recently with the council.
We'll start with Mr. Lucchini.
No. Very simply, no.
If you could,
Sorry, I'm going to get closer to the mic because apparently this is an issue. The short answer is no. That's probably a duty for the state police. If any law enforcement sees a criminal or ethical issue, either the state auditor, state attorney general, or the state police are the appropriate agents to take that to.
Mr. Whitehead, make sure you get close to that mic.
Okay, it's the first time in my life I've ever been accused of not being loud enough. I think that's a conversation that's yet to be had. The probable cause, even the reasonable suspicion that a crime has occurred is something yet to be defined in such a hypothetical question. I do not have a problem with the Office of Sheriff investigating such impropriety. It's my belief that the function of the sheriff is to enforce the statutes of the state as well as the ordinances of the county, and the only place where the two organizations seem to overlap, where the overlapping of the duties is even a concern, is with the enforcement of the ordinances of the county. So, that being said, assuming a favorable ruling from the appellate court, we will need to have a conversation on how we go forward, and that conversation isn't to define the roles, responsibilities, and duties of the sheriff, but to actually implement those that were already written in place within the statutes of this state. Thank you.
Mr. White.
I lived in Las Vegas, Nevada for 30 years. One of my friends in the Las Vegas police force gave me this hat when they changed theirs. There, they have an elected sheriff that's in charge of the police department. So they kind of got best of both worlds going on when it comes to doing something like investigating any fears of government corruption. Unfortunately, we're 17,000 people, not 1.7 million, like Las Vegas, Nevada has. So again, some of these duties are going to have to be hashed out with the new council and the police department. But I can tell you from my time in Las Vegas, Nevada, and one day watching the FBI on TV go into the county building, the commissioners back there are full-time, not part-time, and they walked out with 6 of the 7 in handcuffs, and all 6 did time. Where did the FBI get their information from? They did not investigate it themselves. The state police in Nevada did not do it. FBI depends on local law enforcement for their investigations. So yes, I believe the Sheriff's Department should be involved if a citizen's concerned about government corruption.
Our next question. Yes, Mr. Sheets. Oh, I am very sorry. Yes, please.
Thank you. This will be quick. Yeah, I don't think it's the role of the sheriff to be investigating ethics crimes. I don't think we're qualified. It is the top priority of the FBI to investigate fraud and corruption in police departments and with elected officials.
Okay, Mr. Sheehy, please.
If you are elected sheriff, will you continue the present lawsuit to the state Supreme Court if necessary? And will you abide by the decision that is laid down?
Oh, that's my sign. Mr. Whitehead.
Okay, simply stated, yes, Councilor Sheehy. I will abide by the ruling from either the appellate court or the New Mexico State Supreme Court when such ruling is handed down. As far as whether or not I'll continue the current lawsuit, I don't believe that that is the purview of the newly elected sheriff, as that the lawsuit is already underway, and as far as I know, is independent of who gets elected this November.
Mr.
Thank you.
White.
This is where having some experience in the legal area comes in real handy. No, neither one of the appeals that's going on currently, I think actually it's still in district court on the one the current sheriff has with the Attorney General. I will end that. The Court of Appeals one, if it hasn't been decided, I will end that. These suits are done in the name of the office of the sheriff. So much like the decision from Judge Matthews that's on my website, he specifically repeatedly addresses Sheriff Lucero. But his decision, because the suit is in the name of the office of the sheriff, applies to each succeeding sheriff. And I do think that the reason I believe that the decisions by Judge Felter in '76 and Judge Matthews this July were good decisions and were applicable is because they preserved all of the statutory duties of the sheriff's office, but they did take away law enforcement only in regards to violent crimes. Our police are trained for the violent crimes. Not every sheriff, not even myself with my experience, is trained for the violent crimes.
I respect Judge Matthews' decision, and whatever results from the appeal, I absolutely will abide, but I'm not going to pursue any more litigation. I'm tired of it.
I very much will abide by the decision of whichever court is last ruled on this issue. I'm not a lawyer, I do not play one on TV, but I believe that this suit will continue because it's in the appellate court, regardless of who is sheriff at the time. If that's not the case, I would continue the lawsuit for the simple reason I think we need finality. The money's been spent on the defense for this. We need finality. We need an actual decision on the merits to revisit the 1976 case, not the Matthews decision, which was the '76 case stands. So yes, I would continue it. Don't believe I would need to.
Next question from the audience, Ms. Schultz.
Can you hear me? Okay. Since we're on the topic of lawsuits, have you personally initiated any lawsuit against Los Alamos County? If so, how many and for what reasons?
Mr. White.
Well, anybody reading the newspapers knows that I filed several court actions. I'm glad this question came up because there's an awful lot of misunderstanding, not only about what the court actions were about, but also who's paying for them. So far as the recalls go, everybody has paid their own costs in the recalls. I've had to pay for my costs. The counselors, they've paid for their costs. So nothing's come out of the taxpayer dollars for that. As far as what I filed with the Supreme Court never asked for any opinions from the county or the Attorney General of the state or the Secretary of State or anyone. So I've borne all the costs for that. Not a single penny has come from the taxpayer dollars in either our county or from the state. And on the injunction that I filed, simply to make our county government follow their own ordinances and charter, that is still in the courts. And the way the courts work is, whoever the loser is, pays the cost. So if I lose, I'll be responsible. If the county loses, they're responsible, and people should be mad at the county, not me.
Mr. Grandpa?
I have no lawsuits against the county council or the sheriff's office or the police department.
Mr. Lucci?
I don't have any lawsuits against anybody.
And Mr.
Yes, I currently have one outstanding lawsuit against the county for an inspection of Public Record Act violation that occurred in 2016. As that the subject of that lawsuit is still pending litigation, I'm going to refrain from discussing the issues in detail. However, you know, the reason why the lawsuit was filed is I think the transparency in government is essential in a free and open society. One of our local reporters, Mara O'Neill, I believe, covered the pending litigation in extensive detail, so I direct you to her article with the Los Alamos Daily Post for any additional information that you may require, and I'm sure if you stay connected with her as a media source, you will see any changes or developments in that litigation. Thank you.
We have a very full schedule this morning, and so kind of this evening, and so we will be moving to our closing statements now, closing comments. Mr. White, you're first.
Well, first I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and everybody here for having an interest in their elected government and coming out to hear all of us. I'd like to thank the sheriff's candidates for showing up tonight, especially my good friend, Mr. Granville. And I want to take the rest of the time to please ask people, and let me make this clear. If you do this, I never see the money. It goes through Facebook. And I really care about our kids and our people here. If you go to my Facebook, if you just search on Facebook, Greg White, Los Alamos, my page will come up. I have a fundraiser for suicide prevention. I'm trying to raise $1,000 by election day. Doesn't obligate you to vote for me, doesn't obligate you to follow me or friend me on Facebook. I'm sure everybody here could afford $1. Thank you.
Again, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and those of you who chose to join us this evening to engage with the candidates, to become more informed and celebrate the process or the culture that we have in this country of democracy. I'm here tonight not to antagonize those that have already changed or decided against me. I'm not here to reinforce the opinions of those that have agreed with me, but to appeal to those that have yet to decide which way they will vote. I don't care about your party. I don't care about your politics. I care about the county of Los Alamos. I care about the people of Los Alamos. I believe in this county. I believe in the office of county sheriff. I believe in the people of Los Alamos. And I believe that the people of Los Alamos deserve to have a sheriff. I'm asking for every registered voter. Oh, sorry. Thank you. James Whitehead for sheriff. Thank
you. I'll try to keep this short. So I'm asking for your vote. I think that what we need here is finality, which the course will give us. I also think we need calm, rational leadership in the sheriff's office. The sheriff has a limited set of duties. It's not all things to all people. And if you agree with me, please vote for me. If you don't agree with me, vote for me anyway. That was the left line. But anyway, you can go to chrisluchini.org to look at all my positions, editorials, and soon-to-be legal analysis of the current situation in the county. Thank you.
Thank you again to the league and for everyone taking time out of their evening to come out here and spend some time learning about the candidates. I think it's really time for healthy communication, period. That's what we need. We need to be talking to each other. We're neighbors. We all live in the same community. We shouldn't be trying to create greater divides than what really exist. We're all interested in the same thing, taking care of each other and being respectful of each other. And if those values resonate with you, I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Hi folks, my name is Leslie Wallstrom and I'm moderating this presentation made by the candidates for magistrate judge and also municipal judge. Each candidate will have about 3 minutes for an introductory statement, then there'll be some time for questions and answers, and then each candidate can wrap up with a 1-minute closing statement. It has just been suggested that the candidates stand because apparently it's hard for some people to see in the back. So if that's okay, we'll start with Mr. James Rickman, who is running for magistrate judge, and then
actually it starts with Pat.
The ballot. On the ballot.
It's on the ballot order. So Pat.
My mistake. Sorry. First time moderating.
It's all right.
Pat, go ahead. Thank you.
I want to thank the league first for holding this and having it in a bigger room. It's really nice to see all the people here. I am Pat Casados. I am your current magistrate judge. I am a state court. I hear civils, and I am not Judge Judy. I hear misdemeanors, felonies, traffics, DWIs. The first 3 are considered misdemeanors. And I hold jury trials. If you want to hear one, I'm having one on October 11th. And I perform weddings. And because the Supreme Court has ordered, I'm a traveling judge. I've been to Chama, Moretti, Las Cruces, Clovis, Raton, Belen, Santa Fe, Roswell, Alamogordo, and in the future I'm looking at Gallup, Hobbs, Silver City, and today I've been told I may go to Clayton. That is a lot of experience in the field. Los Alamos is a small court, so you don't get to hear or see a lot of cases that you see when you go and travel. So I feel that experience gives me a qualification to continue as magistrate judge. But the proudest experience I have is by my peers in the Judicial Education Center. I've been asked to be a trainer for new judges. Every 4 years we have a crop of new judges, and they have to attend a 2-week school. And I was one of those trainers for that 2 weeks. And then they come back for a week in about 5 to 6 months because by that time they've decided some things they need to know. And then I was a mentor judge. Every new judge elected is given a mentor judge. And for the first year and even into the years later, you're somebody they call. And I'm very proud of doing that. I'm on the ground floor right now of some really interesting, frustrating, and exciting things that are going to be happening to our courts. The administrative part of our courts is changing from the Supreme Court down, and I'm very proud to be on the ground floor of some of that. I have attended the National Judicial College in Reno and have obtained the Certificate for Special Jurisdiction Courts for non-lawyers, and I have also taken many more learning credits. That certificate was about 90 learning credits and classes all over the country. I also have sat on some very important committees, and I've been appointed to those by the Supreme Court. I hope that you will consider me to retain me as judge. I still have a passion for this job, and I want to continue. Thank you.
Everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Nice. So first off, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event and inviting me to participate. It's nice to see such a huge turnout. My name is James Rickman, and I'd like to serve as your next magistrate judge. I was raised in Los Alamos and have lived in this community for more than 40 years. I retired from Los Alamos National Laboratory this year after 24 years of service. Obviously, I love Los Alamos and its many amenities. I believe that by serving as magistrate judge, I can help preserve the outstanding quality of life all of us enjoy here, because the courts play a vital role in ensuring the continuing safety and livability of our community. Although a local magistrate judge position does not require a law degree or any other specific educational requirements, I believe I possess an excellent mix of academic and work experience that will allow me to serve honorably and effectively as your judge. I earned a bachelor's degree in philosophy from New Mexico State University. This provided me with a classical education that focused on philosophical disciplines such as logic, ethics, the nature of reality, social sciences, including psychology and anthropology, and a working knowledge of chemistry, physics, and other disciplines. After college, I worked extensively as a journalist, a photographer. I took a short stint in the public sector. I later established myself as a science writer and public relations expert at the laboratory. I believe this combined education experience has made me adept at being able to understand and deal with complex topics across the entire spectrum of human experience. It has given me the ability to listen and connect with people from extremely diverse walks of life, and to sift through the noise and complexity of everyday events to arrive at underlying truths. Additionally, my partner of nearly 20 years and I have served as landlords as well as tenants in New Mexico, which provides me with a valuable perspective on both sides of landlord-tenant disputes, which are heard in the court. I also had the opportunity while in college to help tutor inmates at the Southern New Mexico Correctional Facility, which provided me with some insight into the mindset of the incarcerated. As someone who has been a victim of crime, I believe that crime victims should be afforded the opportunity to participate in the judicial process to the extent that the law allows, and be made whole to the extent possible after a crime. As a student of ethics and human nature, I believe that judges should be of the highest integrity, and that courts should provide all participants with the greatest amount of decency, dignity, and respect. In other words, every person who enters the chamber should be treated fairly and impartially and without prejudice of any kind whatsoever. When I say liberty and justice for all, you can have no doubt that I mean it. I look forward to serving honorably as your next magistrate judge. I hope that you will give me the confidence of your vote on November 6th. Thanks for your attendance tonight and for your thoughtful consideration.
We have now some time for questions from the audience. You just want to raise your hand and the mic will come to you.
I understand that there might be a possibility that probate court will come under your jurisdiction. Do you have any thoughts about that?
It is being looked at as a possible legislative issue with the Supreme Court, and it would not go into effect for the next 4 years because we couldn't remove a city judge from the probate. I have discussed it with the Chief Judge of the Supreme Court. I don't know that it would be a good fit, but if it comes down, we'll make it work and we'll educate our judges. That's where we'll need the biggest move, is to educate the magistrate judges. The district judges are also looking at it because they also already hear probate issues, and so the discussion is still going on, and I actually will be at a meeting tomorrow where that discussion will go on, whether or not it is a good fit. But like I said, it wouldn't even go into effect for 4 years, and it would have to be a constitutional amendment, so all of you would decide.
I've also heard that that's under discussion. Be up to people to decide that on their own. I actually just people take the probate court for granted a lot of times. I just recently went through a rather complicated probate process after my mother died. We had a member of the family who acted badly, I guess. Anyway, it was very complex, and it gets down into the weeds very quickly. And as part of that process, I was able to delve deeply into the minutia of that process, and I actually know it quite well. So, thank you.
Is there another question? Can you wait for the mic?
The role of the judge is not just sentence them to jail or declare them not guilty. There's an area in between, and my question is, what programs would you as the judge espouse for those people that have not committed crimes worthy of going to jail but are guilty of an offense? What kind of programs would you foster either for juveniles and teens and versus older plaintiffs, defendants, I would say?
Is that me? Yeah. No, thanks for your question. You know, we have to be governed by what the law says, and there are prescriptions for penalties that can and cannot necessarily be implemented. But if the law allows for it, I mean, putting somebody in jail, having spent time with prisoners and stuff, you realize that putting somebody in jail for a long time is kind of a waste of a life, especially for a productive person who, you know, is rehabilitatable, if that's a word. So I believe that if the law allows for it, credible options for rehabilitation outside of incarceration, such as military service, enrollment, satisfactory progress in accredited educational job training programs, or structured apprenticeships could be considered under certain circumstances. That way, and then this idea of restorative justice, I do believe that people need to be held accountable for their actions. And if you're a crime victim, and we've been crime victims, it's very important that, to the extent possible, a crime victim be made whole.
We are limited in some of the programs we actually have here in Los Alamos. So I would like to see some more programs. Drug rehabilitation, mental health issues. We are working on pretrial services to make sure we can get those people and get those people in some programs. As far as juveniles, the only juvenile I can see is in a traffic. Juvenile court is in the district court level, so I would not be able to see a juvenile past traffic. So what I do is send them to teen court, which is where we have many programs through the Juvenile Justice Advisory Board that we can help them with some things. We need to have people to help them find another path. We need to find ways to get them homes, get them, maybe they just need help with getting Medicaid or Medicare, whatever they need. We need to find those kind of paths to help. And we do have to go, if it says shall, that's what they get. If it says may, I have discretion in the statutes.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question.
Make it a good one.
I don't see any hands raised, so we'll have the closing statements, and Mr. Brickman will begin.
So I'd like to thank the League again for hosting this forum and for all of you attending. Politics has gotten kind of divisive. It's kind of weird that the job of being a judge falls into the political realm. But the opportunity for honest and fair dialogue and people to ask questions is rare these days. I realize it's difficult for people to make decisions based on sound bites, 3 minutes and 1 minute here. So you can review my qualifications on my website. It's rickman4magistrate.com. It's the letter 4, or the number 4. I'll also stick around after the forum if people have more questions they'd like answered. We also have yard signs for those of you who would like one. On November 6th, I hope you'll give me the confidence of your vote. You'll find me on the ballot as James E. Rickman. The E stands for ethics, enthusiasm, and empathy. Thank you.
I grew up in the country where a man's word stood for something. And you have my word that when you come to court, which I realize most of you don't want to, when you come to court, I will treat your case as the most important case in front of me, because it is important to you. And that is what I strive to do. I try to be and have integrity. And that's doing something right when nobody's watching. And very few times is somebody watching me in court other than the people who are involved. So I try to stand for integrity. I still have passion for this job, and I want to complete some of the projects so that not only Los Alamos is a great magistrate court, the state has great magistrate courts. And I would appreciate your vote if you're starting early or on November 4th.
The candidates are Elizabeth Allen and Alan Kirk. They'll start with their introductory statements, and it turns out Elizabeth Allen will begin.
I am Elizabeth Allen, and I am running for municipal judge. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and all of you here today, plus the people who are watching this on YouTube later or reading about it. Thank you for taking the time to listen, to care, and to engage at a time when our political system seems only to divide, anger, and make it so you have to block all your friends on Facebook. I stand before you today to ask you for your vote as municipal judge and to tell you about who I am. I am a lawyer. I studied at Pepperdine School of Law and fell in love with the law. I interned with the 10th Circuit and learned to research and write. I represented children with special needs and learned to care passionately about my clients. As a prosecutor, I learned to respect the law. As a defense attorney, I learned to listen to those who had allegedly broken the law. I argued appeals for murderers with life sentences, and then the next day went to child protection court and argued for visitation for a child with his cat. I run my own law firm. I create estate plans, real estate contracts, criminal defense, and do a lot of name changes. I am an educator. I teach here at UNMLA business law and criminal law. I teach concurrent students from the high school as well as what UNMLA calls the non-traditional student. I taught teen court and taught teens how to cross-examine and enter evidence and make compelling arguments. I teach continuing education to other attorneys, and I teach toddlers in church. Fortunately, with all my teaching experience, I know that candy works in all situations. I am a volunteer. I get no money to be the secretary on the Family Strengths Network Board or on Peak Board or Lodgers Tax Board. I actually pay to play in the symphony. But my hobbies are serving on these boards because I genuinely enjoy serving the people in Los Alamos and getting to know these people. When Houston experienced flooding, I helped organize a book drive for the schools that had lost all of their books. And our tiny town was able to send 7,000 books to these schools in Houston. This was the same time when there was doing the Africa Library Project, so someone else was also collecting books. And it was just amazing to me that realized Los Alamos has an endless supply of people willing to give their time, their money, and their books. I am a mom to my 9-, 6-, and 3-year-old children. Being a mom is the most creative job I've ever had, and it takes every ounce of innovation raising my kids. But raising a family in Los Alamos means that I am present and I am aware and I'm invested in ensuring that we live in a safe community. A community that would benefit from leadership, who are aware of the problems facing our youth today because they are the engaged parents currently experiencing it firsthand. I'm Elizabeth Allen, and I am running for municipal judge.
Everybody hear me? I'll try not to yell. I only do that in court sometimes. My name is Alan Kirk. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting us tonight. I'm running for my 6th term as your municipal judge. I've been in Los Alamos for 60 years. I grew up here, went to high school here, and I've worked my career, one, the police department, and my second career has been as your municipal judge. As your municipal judge, I've worked very hard in the community to establish a full-service court. And to kind of explain to that is there are a lot of needs in the community that need to be worked with and on involving the courts. A full-service court, we have a teen court. We've established a probation program. We have community service program. And over the last year, as we've heard and seen throughout the state, there's been a little controversy over bond release and bail release throughout the state. Last week, the state came through and started talking about putting together a pretrial service program or coordinator throughout the state. Through municipal court, we did that a year ago. So for the last year, we've had a pretrial service program that supervises inmates once they get out, or defendants when they get out of jail, until their trial date, to prevent any repeat offenses or any further issues for them and for the community. One of the reasons I call it full service is because not only do we provide these services to municipal court, we also provide the services to magistrate court and district court. So what it does is we have a small district court caseload when they come to Los Alamos, and we have a magistrate caseload here in Los Alamos. State probation doesn't deal with misdemeanors. So since magistrate and municipal court deal with misdemeanors, we have those services and programs in place. I've been involved in the community. Over the last 40 years, I took the lead on the teen center. It took years to get it through, but we have one of the best teen centers there is in the state. I'm exceptionally proud of the programs that we have and the support the community gave us and support from the council in getting that done. 15 years ago, we were having issues with our juveniles, and so one of the things that we wanted to do was create a program, and we called it JJAP. I'm involved in the state programs. I have 2 appointments to Supreme Court committees, and I have a governor's appointment on the Juvenile Justice Advisory Council. I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Are there any questions for these 2 candidates? I see one here in the front.
Judges are held to high ethical standards. What do you currently do, or what would you do to ensure that your actions are above reproach?
So a judge's conduct is held responsible for actually maintaining the credibility of the judiciary. So based on the judge's actions, whether determine whether or not people find the judicial system to be credible, if they feel safe about going in front of a judge, if they feel like it's okay to send my children there. I believe that a judge should participate in establishing, maintaining, and reinforcing high standards of conduct, and shall personally observe those standards. One of the things we talk about when we talk about ethical violations is abuse of power. And as an attorney, I've sat in a courtroom before as a prosecutor where a judge was angry at a teenager chewing gum and made her take out that gum and put it on her forehead. She was humiliated and sobbed the entire time during court. She didn't hear anything he said. That was an abuse of power. I have been in courts enough to see that we need to treat people with respect. We need to listen to them and realize they are all individuals. And that is about not abusing the power. Thank you.
As judges, we're required to follow the judicial code of ethics. That's the first thing you think about every day when you come to work. You want to set a standard and you want to have that reputation with the public that they're going to get a fair, impartial hearing, and that if there are issues or misunderstandings in the courtroom, that the judge has the time and the effort to educate individuals in the process and then understand what the penalties or the issues that they're going to face as a result of their case. You work on that every day. You also always, on a daily basis, you remember your oath of office. And that is one of the most powerful things to think about as you come to work and prepare for that day and to make sure that you're being held to the standard, and a very high standard, in your office.
There's a question right here.
Yeah.
Can you wait for the mic now? She's coming.
I'm just wondering what your philosophy or how you would handle the driving while under the influence. That's what I'd like to know.
Elizabeth?
Again? Okay. So this is hard for me. And as Judge Kirk mentioned, we have this judicial ethics handbook where we're not allowed, when we're running for office, to say how we would rule on certain kinds of cases. So, you know, there's been a division of courts on whether or not this is technically free speech by impeding us. Because I can't get up here and say, all purple people go to jail, or, you know, this is how I feel about this. I want you to know that I have tried both DUIs as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney. And based on that experience in which I've had, I understand the requirements that are needed to be met in order to prove a DWI case. It's technical. There's a lot to it. And a lot of defense attorneys think, oh, I'm just going to sit back and see if the prosecutor messes up. But a lot of defense attorneys have to go. I mean, we're talking checking in toxicology. You know, it's just like there's so many elements to these DWI cases. What I can promise you is that I would look at each case individually without making determinations based on other DUIs I've seen or things I've seen in the past. But I would look at each case individually, see if it met the elements, and judge impartially and fairly based on my experience. So thank you.
DWI cases are one of the more serious cases that come before the municipal court. It's very important. Well, let's go back. The law has changed over the last few years to where now every case is handled by a prosecutor. So the county has a prosecutor that is responsible for the DWIs. The defense attorneys come in and present their case. It's very important for the role of the judge to follow procedures, listen to the facts, and make a decision on the case. Once a guilt or not guilty is determined, then case is over. If it's guilty, then you have the issue of determining what type of sentence. I had a philosophy for a long time that there are three areas when sentencing a DWI. You have the punitive model, then you have the behavioral issues, and then you have to educate and treat. One of the biggest things that we're working with right now and struggling with in our community is the lack of treatment. We are desperate in the area of finding appropriate treatment to keep people from reoffending, especially in the area of DWI. Thank you.
Any more questions? Oh, see one right here.
Yes, I have a question on the nuisance ordinances that the county sometimes inflicts on some of their citizens. I guess the question is twofold. I'm kind of curious as to statistics in terms of how many roughly out of the numbers, how many actually get to court or not settled before, And then the second part of the question is, the little yellow slips you get say that the county prosecutor will handle it. On a nuisance ordinance like that, do you feel as lawyers or judges that a defendant, if they want to fight it, should have counsel to do that, or can they come before you, the judge, and argue it themselves? Thank you.
Nuisance ordinances. Gotta love them. You know, as judge, I've had a really unique philosophy. And code enforcement is different because under the county code, the violation is day by day. It's not like you get stopped for a traffic ticket. To answer your question, we've had approximately 146 cases in the last 2 years. Of those, there's been 2 convictions. There's been 1 case that we have not been able to resolve. All the other cases, as for the violations filed before the court, have been resolved. Some through plea agreements, some through resolution prior to trial, and others after trial, if they're found guilty, they've been resolved. I find it very important prior to trial to have the code enforcement personnel and the defendant speak before proceeding with the case. This has resulted in a large amount of the cases being dismissed. So I think we've been very successful. I think we've been getting resolutions and solving the issues, and we've had to use very little penalties to get it done. Thank you.
I was surprised this question wasn't brought up more with the county council, since it's, part of it is legislating, writing that code. But I feel like with this, the county code violations and what this brings up is that when it's you feel like, especially when I've had clients that have these type of charges and or just call me and ask what should I do, they have to, no matter what, because it's a criminal charge, they have to go and report it to their work. It's considered something they have to report if they have a Q clearance. So even if they, what's the punishment at the end when there's a sentencing or when that was actually filed? It's hard to necessarily say that. I think Judge Kirk answered for the most part, the numbers that there are there and how many there are there. But I believe that with this new community development board in regards to this, I think we're going to get a lot of transparency in regards to this code violation, and I'm interested to see what happens. So thank you for your question.
I think we have time for one more.
One of you is older and has police background, and the other is younger and has a law background. My question, but I'm older than you are, so. But I wanted to know why you feel, with your backgrounds and age, why you would be the better candidate.
I've been your municipal judge for 20 years. I've sat the bench. I've heard the ordinance violations from animal control to code enforcement to criminal offenses to traffic offenses. The other day we were sitting there reminiscing, and I've been responsible for closer to near 40,000 cases that have come before the municipal court in the last 20 years. I think I'm a better candidate in the fact that I have judicial experience. I understand the community. I've lived here for 60 years. I've taken a leadership role in the community, and I've supported a lot of activities and programs, and I've really looked at keeping our kids out of the criminal justice system. And I've got a lot of experience in that area of diversion, and right now we're also dealing with programs dealing with addiction. We're dealing with repeat offenders that aren't necessarily from our community, but are known to have previous criminal offenses. And so we're having to deal with those type issues. So I think with my experience of not only locally, but in the region, and with the handling of the case and being a judge for 20 years with that experience, I think I'm a better candidate. Thank you.
So the municipal court is a limited jurisdiction court. It means that they can only do a very small number of cases, and they only have jurisdiction over people for a short amount of time. Thanks, Caroline, for calling me young, but I have been able to practice in many different areas and in many different kinds of courts, all the way from the 10th Circuit to traffic court to district court. When Judge Kirk says that he has judicial experience, he's saying that I do not have judicial experience. But I'm here to tell you today that I have experience that is unique to what anyone else has, and that I have both been a prosecutor and a defense attorney. I have done civil cases, and I have done appellate work. My appeal work was analyzing, it's post-conviction work, analyzing the entire court history to see if anyone made a mistake. I've been able to comb through those cases and see, did the judge make a mistake? Did the attorneys make a mistake? What went wrong or what went right? Because I've been able to analyze these things, and because I've been given that mind of analyzing case law, I believe that I would be an asset to the municipal court. I bring my experience from outside of Los Alamos, but also from the experience I have here. When I moved to Los Alamos, I feel like I moved home. This is my home, and I would be honored to serve you as municipal judge.
So each candidate will now have an opportunity to make a closing statement of about 1 minute, and you.
Once again, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having this forum, and I'd like to really thank everybody for coming tonight. I mean, what a crowd. I've worked very hard as your municipal judge in making sure that everybody that comes to court is the most important person in the courtroom. I feel I've been impartial and fair, and I render sentences that equal to the violation. I think it's important not to overreact, but to also realize that very few people that come before the municipal court need a lot of urging not to come back. So, my name is Alan Kirk. I'd like to continue as your municipal judge, and I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
I believe the court needs new energy and a fresh perspective. I have been in front of over 20 different judges during my legal career, including the 10th Circuit to traffic court. The requirements to be a Los Alamos municipal judge are that you are a resident of the county and that you are able to vote and elected by a majority. That means that you, as voters, get to determine what the qualifications of your judge is. My legal experience is varied. I am committed to this community, and I am asking you today that you decide your judges in Los Alamos need to be qualified attorneys, and I am asking for your vote. Thank you.
I'll be turning over the floor now to Ellen Mills, and we will be hearing from the candidates for District 43.
Okay, we're right on schedule. Our two candidates for District 43 House Representative are Councilor Christine Chandler and Dr. Lisa Shin. And so we're going to start with their opening comments, and then we'll move to questions from the floor. Councilor Chandler?
Thank you, Ellen, and thank you, League of Women Voters, for organizing this event. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. During the campaign, I focused on the issues: education, vocational training, health care, improving our infrastructure, and addressing the needs of the district. Tonight, I'd like to discuss how I view myself performing the actual job of a representative and what I consider key to being effective. There are 3 skills or qualities that I think are most important: the ability to listen, interest in learning and studying an issue, and the ability to collaborate and to compromise. I've worked to hone these skills as a counselor and as a member of many civic boards in the community. As a current example, when the code enforcement issue came up this year, I knew the council needed to ensure that the concerns that were being raised were fairly addressed, and this is how I approached it. I met with a number of residents to hear their concerns, their complaints, and their desired outcomes. I looked at a lot of relevant documents, such as notices of violations and citations, and I read codes from other cities, and I read planning documents from other sources to try to have a better understanding about how we as a community might be approaching these things. I integrated all of these things into my thinking and analysis, and I collaborated with other counselors and our residents to develop a positive plan of action that balances the various views and interests. Code enforcement's one example. Other examples of where I've been successful in using these skills is my study of the Small Modular Nuclear Reactor project, and most recently, an effort that I've led to ensure that we're managing the animal shelter well and in a way that enhances our community. The day-to-day work of a representative is not pushing an ideological agenda. It's about listening to your constituents, doing your homework, and compromising to reach agreement. These are not skills that you learn overnight. There is a significant learning curve, and I am continuing to learn. I look forward to representing you in District 43. Thank you.
My name is Lisa Shin, and as many of you know, I've been an optometrist in Los Alamos for the past 21 plus years. But I am also a small business owner who built my practice from ground up. So my approach to the issues is largely fiscal. I ask, how can we use our hard-earned tax dollars in the most efficient and effective way possible? How will this legislation impact job creation, economic prosperity, and opportunity? Securing a bright future for our kids depends on economic prosperity and financial security for them. And Los Alamos perfectly demonstrates the direct link between wealth, strong families, parental engagement, community involvement, and successful kids. So at the state legislature, I think we need to look at wealth and economic prosperity, and we need to look at policies that engage parents and community to have successful kids. Money management is, after all, a primary duty of a lawmaker. My experience, knowledge, and skills as a small business owner would be a huge asset to the state legislature, and I have no record of mismanagement of public funds. We have $1.2 billion surplus thanks to oil and gas, and we have to decide how much and how we will spend on public schools, healthcare, mental health, and we need to invest in programs that give us the best return for our dollars. Early education will definitely be a legislative priority in the upcoming session, and my guiding principle will apply. I think we ought to tap into federally funded programs like Head Start, and we need to look at the preschool development grants birth through 5 money that will give $1 billion to states over 4 years to help strengthen their early childhood programs. I think this will be tremendous for New Mexico. Also, we have potentially 2 centers of excellence that can drive our economy and education for our region. The Regional Partnership School is the first program in New Mexico that combines the Powahki Valley Schools, New Mexico Highlands University, and our National Laboratory. It will definitely benefit our kids and our teachers alike. And I believe that UNM-LA can also partner with Triad and our National Laboratory to also become a center of excellence to develop more programs to meet workforce needs and strengthen higher education for our district. So I would be humbled and honored to serve you in our state legislature, and I ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
We'll take questions from the floor now. Here.
Do you support a bipartisan committee for redistricting?
Councilor Chen.
Yes, I do. I think, although it's very difficult to get politics out of the districting, Yes, I do, although it's very hard to get politics out of the districting process. I think we need to endeavor to put in as many buffers as we can to ensure that it's not highly politicized. So yes, I would support such a measure.
Dr. Shin.
I would support such a measure as well. I really believe that we need fair representation of all communities. I believe one of the difficulties that's been with this district, for example, is there's such disparity between among the communities, and I've noticed that the needs are just so different in Cuba and Jemez Springs and Peña Blanca, and so I would really want to make sure that in the redistricting process that there is adequate and fair representation for all communities. Thank you.
Next question. Somebody who hasn't spoken yet. Let's go ahead. Amy.
Hi, can you tell me about your campaign finances? If you have a lot, what percentage are from the out-of-state people and who those might be? Thank you.
Dr. Shin?
Okay. So yeah, I did see that article, and it looked like I read that 74% of my support comes from out of the district. And I've been really moved and grateful for the support that I've received in general. I mean, I've got a Democrat uncle who gave me money, and I mean, I've had support from all over the nation, actually, and I've been very moved and very grateful for that. So is that the answer?
No,
okay.
What percentage is out of state?
I thought I said, okay, out of state. I know that about 74% is out of district. I don't know how much of it is out of state.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Councilor Chen.
Well, the large majority of my contributions are in district. I believe it's over 70-some-odd%. And they're largely from individuals, and I made a very concerted effort to focus on speaking to individuals at fundraisers and so on, and try to garner their support. And I think the fact that I've gotten so much individual contributions is reflective of the fact that I am active in the community, and people recognize that I am a viable candidate on behalf of all of you. And I'm very grateful for your support. I have received I think maybe one donation from out of state, and that's my best friend who lives in Sacramento, California. So I don't believe I've received any out-of-state contributions other than from her.
Your next question? Yes?
Access to healthcare is one of the biggest concerns in our district. Do you support telemedicine initiatives, including eye exams and prescriptions as part of a larger rural healthcare access plan?
Okay, sorry. How does one? This one, I guess.
Let's do that.
Thank you for the question, Maggie. I think we need to think creatively about increasing access to medicine in the state. We have a large rural population, and it's very important that we try to improve our resources to those, to folks living in the rural communities, as you know. And so yes, I would support whatever we can do to advance telemedicine and access to resources through telecommunications. Not everything, of course, can be addressed through telemedicine and telecommunications, but to the extent that it can, I would definitely support it, and I would work in the legislature to try to make that a feasible proposition. Thank you.
So I don't know if you're aware that, that New Mexico actually leads in reimbursements and access to telemedicine. And so I think we definitely need to build on that. Also, the Veterans Bill that was just signed recently, it was a $55 billion initiative to improve health care for veterans, includes provisions for telemedicine. So I'm definitely on board with high quality telemedicine. I think it's definitely the future. And it would be a tremendous help to people in the rural communities, just like Councilor Chandler said. Thank you.
I'm going to move to this side of the room. Yes?
Do you support protecting women's right to the full range of reproductive health care, including allowing Planned Parenthood to keep receiving medical reimbursement for services such as mammograms and Pap smears?
Dr. Shin?
Yes, I do support funding for basic health services, such as mammograms. I do not support funding for abortions, so thank you.
Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Do you support protecting women's right to the full range of reproductive health care, including allowing Planned Parenthood to keep receiving Medicaid reimbursement for services such as mammograms and Pap smears?
Yes, I believe in protecting a woman's right to make all of her own determinations as to her reproductive health, and I believe in ensuring to the fullest extent that we can that women have access to high-quality health care to ensure that they meet their needs on all levels and for all types of services, without reservation. Thank you.
Until we are done. I'm going to take a question in the back. The gentleman who's standing, please.
So if a judge convicts someone of domestic abuse, what are your opinions about giving the judge the leeway to be able to order that any firearms that person may have to be taken away from the person?
The question, as I understand it, is, can a judge and should a judge be allowed to remove firearms from someone who's been convicted of domestic abuse? That's right? Yes. A judge can, and I believe does have the right, to remove firearms from someone who has been convicted of such a crime. And I certainly would not, in the legislature, do anything that would restrict a judge's ability to do so. And if the judiciary came to us and said they needed additional assistance in ensuring that they could continue with those rights, I would work to ensure that that could happen in the future. Thank you.
So, yes, I do not support the possession of firearms by those who are convicted of domestic abuse. Thank you.
Let's see, yes, sir. Right back there, standing.
Wrong person.
Thank you. Have either of you ever sued the county of Los Alamos? Either yourself or your spouses? If so, why?
Is it your turn? Okay. Is it your turn?
Is it my turn?
Yeah, I believe so.
So, no, I never sued the county. I never disenfranchised voters. I never prevented our citizens from having a say in how their tax dollars would be used. And no, I didn't put a lucrative $20 million contract over the will of the voters. So my answer to that is no.
Yes, Mr. Whitehead, I think you know that my husband and I, as individuals and on our own dime, sued the county to ensure that the electoral process was honored. And what had happened was the county council, on a 4-3 vote, and against the advice of council, placed an illegal ballot question on the ballot. And and my husband and I were sitting in the audience at the time that it happened, and we were dumbfounded. And we thought, well, you know, we have the skills and the knowledge to be able to assist the community, and that's exactly what we did. And as a result, an illegal question was not placed on the ballot. The court ruled in our favor from the bench. That's how clear the legal question was, and enjoined the county from pursuing the matter. And I'm not ashamed of that. I think it's right for people to speak up on behalf of the rights of the citizens whenever they have the opportunity and the ability to do so.
Okay, so I'm just looking at my watch, and we are to go to our closing statements now. I'm looking to our inventor. More time. Okay, we've got time for more questions. Yes. Okay. As Leslie said before, we're both pretty new at this. Yes, in the back, please.
Dr. Shin and Mrs. Chandler, could you please describe your personal ethics and treatment of others, and how that would tie into your role as our state representative, and how you would listen to us as constituents about the issues that we have?
Thank you for that question, Mrs. Lucero. I think I touched on that in my opening statement. As a counselor and as someone's representative, I think it's very important to reach out to people and to listen to them. And in my role as a county counselor, especially this term, where I think I've grown in the position, I have made a point of reaching out to people who disagree with me. I get emails from people who are concerned about things, and sometimes they're, believe it or not, they're not all that happy with what the county council's doing. And I made a pledge to myself that I was going to work to try to understand people who raise issues of concern to the council. And I've made a point of calling people up, asking them for coffee, and visiting with them. And there are a number of you in the audience who know that to be the case. And I look forward to doing that when I'm elected, or if I'm elected to House Seat 43. I'm going to make sure that I talk to people who agree with me and people who disagree with me across the district, not in just Los Alamos County, but in Peña Blanca, La Cienega, Jemez Springs, Cuba, Gallina. I've been doing that as I've been running for office, and it's been a very interesting and enlightening experience to make sure that you are reaching out and talking to people who aren't just like you. Thank you.
Okay. So recently we had a Adams and Crow investigation of improper use of public funds by the Regional Coalition of Llano Communities. And I can assure you that my name is not included in this report. And I can promise you this, that if I am elected, I will adhere to the highest standards of integrity, ethics, and accountability, especially when it comes to your tax dollars being used in the most fiscally responsible way possible. Thank you.
Okay, I'm trying to mix it up here. Let's go to the gentleman in the orange yellow shirt. That would be you.
Concerning wealth, prosperity, and the almighty dollar, should you be elected, you'll pledge an oath to uphold the New Mexico Constitution, one section of which is an emoluments clause. What do you pledge to do to ensure that you will not cross the line concerning emoluments, nor any perception of even getting close to crossing that line? Thank you.
Dr. Shannon.
Could you repeat that question?
Concerning the New Mexico Constitution, which will swear an oath to uphold should you be elected, there's a section in there concerning emoluments, an emoluments clause. So you're not to cross that line. That is, for example, passing any legislation that would help any financial and or business holdings that you may have. How do you pledge not to cross that line?
Right. Well, I mean, that's an excellent question. And obviously, there are governmental codes of conduct, and that governmental officials are to abide by. And I don't have any record of violating any codes of conduct, any ethics, any violations of ethics codes, past or present. So I would definitely need to recuse myself from votes that could benefit me financially or my business. So again, as I said before, I would adhere to the highest standards of ethics, integrity, and accountability if I were to be elected. Thank you.
There are disclosure requirements that our elected officials are required to file, and of course I would adhere to those. And frankly, I can't think of any business interests that I have that would come into play, to be truthful, but once I see the disclosure form, I'll be able to understand better what is required, and will definitely adhere to any code of conduct requirements. And they include rules such as not voting on things in which you can benefit financially. And of course, I would adhere to that, as I have adhered to that as a county councilor. Thank you.
Barbara?
What are your top 2 priorities for reforming the New Mexico tax code?
Reforming the New Mexico tax code is a significant project. I initially adhere to the view that we should try to broaden the base so that there is more being taxed and there are fewer exemptions and deductions. I also believe that we should look at making the income tax more progressive in nature. Thirdly, I think we should look at an internet sales tax, which we have not fully implemented in the state. I think it not only will enhance revenues, but also level the playing field for brick and mortar stores who are in competition with mail order.
Okay. So yes, I also would love to see tax reform. Our current GRT code is complex, it's confusing, and it actually burdens the small business owners the most. It gives an advantage to the larger businesses. And I do think we need to broaden the base, remove many of the deductions, and lower the overall rate. What is going on right now is we have pyramiding that happens, where the final product gets taxed multiple times, which raises costs to the consumer. And I would not support an internet sales tax. I think that would have a negative impact on businesses and job creation and investments. So I think that out-of-state retailers might decide it's too expensive to do business here in New Mexico with such a tax. And I don't think many of us would appreciate having to pay an extra tax on our internet sales, since many of us depend on that. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. Yes, let's go here. Oh, wait, okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, our big source of revenue, tax base, obviously, is the lab. And recently, with the change in management, there was all this uncertainty as to what was going to happen to that tax base. Both of you have been talking about taxes. Is there any ideas that you have as to how we can ensure or modify our source of taxes from the 800-pound rhinoceros, which is the lab? That's my question.
Sorry, is it my turn? Okay. Yeah, so SB 17, I believe, was flawed legislation, and I do believe that the governor was right to veto that bill. You cannot tax one set of nonprofits without taxing all of them in the same way. And so I do think that SB 17 was not the right approach, but I do think we can look at the way other national laboratories have done it. We do know that there's pilot payments that can be used to directly fund schools and libraries and police and fire districts. And so I do think something like that, where it's negotiated on an annual basis and is mutually beneficial, could be definitely a much better way to look at that. I do think that Triad is 100% committed to economic development and education for Los Alamos and this district, but I don't think that taxation, such as SB 17, was the right approach, and that would not be my approach. Thank you.
At present, Triad is a taxable entity. We don't know if that's going to be the case into the future, as there's some pressure being placed on Triad by the federal government to apply for 501c3 status. So there continues to be uncertainty. PILT is not an effective, nor frankly a very viable methodology. The county receives a couple $100,000 in PILT because there is so much federal land within our boundaries. That's all. The loss of GRT that the county will experience should Triad become a not-for-profit, non-taxable entity is in the neighborhood of $17 million. That's not something you can recover through negotiations or PILT. So it's a very serious issue. The state is looking at it, and there may be a state solution that is based on taxing the lab as the corporate entity that it is, and that's what it is. Every other DOE national laboratory is paying the taxes in the state in which they are housed, and that's an accurate statement. This is the only facility. Think of Sandia. They're carrying their weight for the state. They're paying gross receipts tax as a for-profit entity, and every other national lab in other states are paying their appropriate taxes.
Okay, we're going to move to the closing statements at this point in time. I know I'm sure the candidates will answer your questions individually later on. So Dr. Shin, you're up first.
So I really appreciate the opportunity tonight to share my ideas with you. So I want to remind everyone that we are both asking for your vote to manage your money and who is better for that job. And we need legislators who are willing to challenge both political parties and who are committed to wisdom, fiscal responsibility, and good stewardship when it comes to our tax dollars. We do need tax reform, tort reform, healthcare reform. And we're so polarized politically now, so I really think we need to work together on issues that we both can agree on, such as opioid crisis and vocational education. Those have broad bipartisan support. I think we can secure a bright and prosperous future for our kids, but we have to work together for it. So I ask for your support and your vote. Thank you very much.
Well, I want to thank everybody for your attention and for your interesting questions. Experience matters. My experience as an in-house lawyer at the laboratory has given me an in-depth understanding of the lab, the DOE, and their relationship to the state and the county. My experience as a legislative analyst has given me a great base from which to build as your representative. And my experience as a counselor helped me hone my listening and collaborative skills, important qualities in a representative. I ask for your vote, and I look forward to representing you for District 43. Thank you.
On behalf of the League of Women Voters, I really appreciate the audience turnout and enthusiasm. I'm really glad we're able to sponsor an event like this and we have such great participation. Thank you very much. I'm pretty sure there's some refreshments still left over there too. So,